The demand for change and the path marked by the circular economy is a decisive response against climate change and the grave environmental consequences we observe daily on a global scale. The new state of play requires a systemic change in how we produce and consume, and such a change should be global to lead to a cultural adaptation with awareness and education for the general population and a specific focus on reskilling and upskilling for the active workforce. Join us on an inspiring panel discussion with global thought experts that will reveal the impact of the circular economy on a global scale with a specific take on the Cypriot market. The speakers will share insights on how various industries and sectors will be affected and will explore the opportunities circular economy brings and the requirements needed from the global population to ensure equality. Joyce Haloun, Project Coordinator, Circular Economy Alliance, will head the panel and is joined by Dr. Yorgos Dimitriou, Director of the Circular Economy Research Center, George Kremlis, Principal Advisor to the Greek Prime Minister, Athina Panayotou, Director General Cyprus Organization for Standardization, Dr. Antonis Zorbas, Associate Professor at the Open University of Cyprus, Andri Dimitriadou, Head of Energy and Environment at Cyprus Employers and Industrialist Federation, Nicole Finopoulou, Lawyer, specialized in regulatory compliance and ESG, and Dr. Mark Esposito, Co-founder of Circular Economy Alliance and Nexus Frontier Tech. This panel is co-organized with the Circular Economy Alliance.
Good evening, everyone. As already mentioned by Melanie, tonight we will tap into the topic of circular economy on global scale, but as well on national scale. I have with me here tonight an inspiring panel, and joining us virtually as well, Dr. Mark Esposito, who is our keynote speaker. He will be connecting with us shortly. Meanwhile, I would like to introduce you to our Dr. Yorgos Dimitriou. He is the director of the Circular Economy Research Center in Paris. Athina Panayotou, Director General at the Cyprus Standardization Company and the Cyprus Certification Company as well. Nicole Finopoulou, lawyer with a specific take on finance sector and as well an expert on sustainability and ESG. Andri Dimitriadou joining us as well tonight. She's the Director of Energy and Environment at OEV. I also have the honor to have with us tonight George Kremlis, who's also the Prime Advisor of the Greek Prime Minister, with the specific take on climate, energy, sustainability and circular economy. Last but not least, Antonis Zorbas, Associate Professor at the Cyprus Open University. Thank you for joining us as well, Dr. Mark Esposito. I give you the floor to start.
Thank you very much. Can you just confirm if you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
That's great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I have to say, I am envious not to be in Cyprus with you. I hope it will happen next time. A short introduction on the direction, I think, of reflection of this panel, but also a few things I would like you to maybe take into account into the conversations. So first of all, not only I would like you to consider the circular economy as one important movement that we currently have, but maybe I like to share a little bit of a different angle. At the end of the day, I'm a trained economist, and I started to reflect at a deeper level whether we wanted to look at root causes rather than necessarily just the challenges that we're facing on a regular basis. Now, let me be clear. The circular economy is by far a better form of production. If you had to choose between a linear model of production and a circular one, we all know that the circular economy would not really suffer the competition of linear models because it's simply a much more effective way of producing goods and services in the economy. But it's also a form of improvement of the current economy. And my purpose today is not only to invite you to improve our current state, but can we rethink a fundamental reset by creating value in a way that is going to be much more designed around the needs we currently have. Now, my work in the last few months have been encircled with big conversations. Things like what is the world architecture? How can we really navigate this transition that is going to take us into an entirely different set of normals? How do we really engage in design activism? And how do we make this activism kind of centered around the needs and the framework required to address the challenges that we have in the 21st century? We still have a model of thinking that is rooted and anchored in theories that were actually originated many, many years ago. Now, if we could design our production and models of growth within kind of the planetary boundaries, well, how would that production look like? If we could rethink finance, make it much more inclusive and equitable, if we could rethink about social mobility, if we're rethinking how economies can generate green jobs or jobs that currently we don't really have, if we can think about infrastructure, if we can actually design climate resilience in the way we are building the physical environment, well, how does that look like? These are the questions that I invite you to really engage in, not only in the panel, but throughout the conference. Also, when the conference will be over, reflection I wish you can take away with you. The questions I'm asking are instigating a new form of thinking, which is much more designed on the engineering our systems to become much more human-centric, but also capable of augmenting our abilities and allowing to explore a new phase and era of growth, which is much more designed around the opportunity that we have as a society with the constraints that we have to honor. The circular economy, ladies and gentlemen, is not just a movement that is designed on environmental elevation. It is actually a paradigm shift. It's really where we see a world without the trade-offs, where we don't see prosperity at the expenses of the environment. It's where we actually start shifting decision not only within short-sightedness, but also towards the long-term horizons. If we are going to leave to the future generation a much more equitable world, we have to consider that the relationship with the planet cannot be problematic and neither platonic. It has to be engaged and much more about redesigning it within the boundaries. When we do that, when we're designing our life on Earth within the boundaries, we unleash a degree of ingenuity that's really where innovation and technology can help us moving forward. I wish you a good panel. I salute you all, and I wish you this to be the very beginning of a journey of reflection that might start with this conference in Cyprus, but will continue for the decades to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mark, for joining us. I will start our panel discussion with Ms. Nicole.
Me first.
I need to know your opinion. What do you think circular economy offers as opportunities through the financial sector in terms of ESG objectives and climate commitments?
Very interesting question. As a circular economy, it's part of what we call sustainability, and effectively it refers to an economic model whose objective is to produce goods or to exchange goods or services in a sustainable way by limiting the consumption and waste of our natural resources. So it's something that everybody can support. So by way of an economic model, which how you will implement, and that is one of the things that the governments have taken first step forward towards the sustainable goals, that is the 17 goals that the United Nations named out for the 2030 agenda, the known 2030 agenda. So it stands for the long tradition in related visions and models and theories. By that way, also the European Union, as also member states as of European Union, they came out with specific legislation to support how to finance this, also getting out what is called now sustainable finance, so to support the economic model for the businesses to implement this in their own organizations, to get the people involved, to get the employees involved in a way to produce the idea of becoming more sustainable. And all these have come out, we have seen this to be assessed in all levels. And as member states, I will say just a few examples. We have seen and we have noticed in our everyday life that there are changes. I will tell 2 examples. The plastic bags, now that we have to pay for them, or the straws that are now changing, is steps towards how to finance and how to produce other ways of sustainable products under circular economy model.
Thank you so much. With that being said, Dr. Yorgos, do you think Europe is actually taking a concrete action to achieve its circularity and climate neutrality by 2050? And what is the role of consumers and employees with that?
Well, that's another good question. I think that primarily Europe is taking action. And it's one of the things that for the first time we can say and be proud globally that Europe is taking the lead in something so important. And circular economy has been one of the topics that the European Union has been pioneering, and we see that other continents or countries are following up. Now, the role of the consumers is critical in this equation. Why? Because they are the driving force for anything and everything, meaning that if consumers understand how the market works, how the policy works, and how their purchasing power affects what is being produced and consumed, and what's the environmental footprint it actually is, then it's the only opportunity that policy, finance, and production can work hand in hand. So what is important here to understand is that an educated consumer has a considerable impact on the chain of actions that are happening, especially in the circular economy transition.
Makes sense. Thank you so much. In this case, Athena, what do you think is the role of standardizations in accelerating the transition to circular economy?
Well, standards are tools. Dr. Dimitriou talked about the consumers, and at the end of the day, the standards are the tools to help organizations basically protect the consumers, to help organizations streamline their operation, their processes, their products. Since 2018, on an international level, we've been developing standards for circular economy, standards that provide guidelines for business models, for value chain, giving ways of how to measure the framework of circularity, how to base it on performance. And among us are 2 of the national experts that work with all our other colleagues worldwide to develop these standards. So yes, we think standards are there to help us not reinvent the wheel individually, but also, I think to have my...
It works.
Hello. Okay.
It's happened, don't worry about it.
It's happening. Or probably someone doesn't want me to to keep speaking. I don't know about the timer. So what I'm saying is that we don't need to reinvent the wheel individually. And by having standards as tools worldwide, it means that we're all approaching the same subject in the same way. And that makes it fair for the industry, for government, for all stakeholders, and at the end of the day, for the consumer as well.
Thank you so much. In this respect, George, do you think the governments and policymakers have a crucial role in supporting the transition?
Well, as I often say, we have to mainstream circular economy vertically and horizontally, starting from the national level through circular national economy plans, moving to the regional level through regional circular economy plans, and then to the local level. We should not be speaking anymore about smart cities. We should be speaking about circular cities, a broader concept implying that plans will have to be developed at the local level to ensure that the holistic model of circular economy, which will ensure the energy transition and at the end carbon neutrality, will be applied. And at the horizontal level, we need to mainstream circular economy in all the policy areas to make them circular, starting with circular tourism. Cyprus is a tourist destination, circular agriculture, circular fisheries, circular energy, transport, and so on, extremely important. And last but not least, ESG, environmental and social governance, at the level of the businesses, because businesses have also to become circular, and I'm usually adding the word CESG to make ESG circular, which is extremely important. And last but not least, we as households and citizens, we have to reduce our footprint, be it energy, environmental, and the climate. Of course, this structure, both horizontal and vertical, has to be supported by a legal framework, which is developed by the European Union within the Green Deal, the climate law of the European Union. Climate laws in our member states, Greece has a very ambitious climate law where circular economy is enshrined. And last but not least, we have a circular economy strategy. I would encourage Cyprus to develop a circular economy strategy with a roadmap to ensure that the available framework, which is a holistic framework as circular economy, and I finish with this, is not only managing waste as a resource and water. It is much more than that. It is electromobility, it is clean energy, it is energy efficiency, it is new sustainable production and consumption patterns that need to be certified, and too many other things which accompany this process of the new economic model, the circular economy.
Thank you so much. Andre, in your opinion, what is the link between environmental protection, climate mitigation, job creation, and circular economy?
Well, greening of the economy is estimated that will entail the fundamental transformation and redesign of the labor market, since a necessary prerequisite to have qualified personnel. Several studies indicate that there's a strong potential for job creation, for example, in the area of renewable energy, digital technologies, waste management. ILO specifically estimates that I think 700,000 jobs will be created only in Europe until 2030. The full picture, though, is that existing jobs will also be transformed and redefined because their profiles will be getting greener, and also a job shift will be experienced from sectors that they have significant adverse environmental impact to more circular activities due to job substitution and job distraction. In these cases, though, it is expected that proper education, upskilling, and reskilling will be the key for this successful job migration. Coming to Cyprus now, due to our island's small market size, it is imperative to have proactively develop strategies that will address the country's future labor demand that will be resulting from the green transition, with, of course, the crucial collaboration of all relevant stakeholders, such as the government, the academia, employers, stuff.
Exactly. And actually, that would start my next questions to Antonis. We really have this very strong fear of skills mismatch. So what do you think is the role of education and skills in accelerating the transition?
Thank you, Joyce. Prime Minister, the Principal Advisor of Prime Minister and Dr. Mack pointed the circular economy dimension very well. We are looking for a new mindset in educational level. When we speak about circular economy, we are not dealing with a waste. This is the biggest mistake that we are doing in academia, in research center, and also in the policymakers. Circular economy is dealing with a huge things around us, from educational level, from research, industrial level, and so on. So the main question is what we are trying to do. We are trying to solve problem and to train the next generation to react in the great debates. For example, if I ask the audience how many of the participants are willing to buy clothes produced from waste, I assume that none of them, they will say that I'm willing or I'm able to do it. However, I will ask them what kind of brand they are wearing, for example, and tell me the brand, definitely I can say to them that this brand is produced from waste. Actually, I'm wearing a shoe that is produced 100% from waste. So what we try to do in academia is not just to do just fundamental research, but to explain what the nature is doing for so many centuries. So we try to explain to our students, we try to explain and educate the consumers to react on the great debates that are coming.
Thank you so much. I'll be back to you, Nicole. Oh. What do you think is the impact of circular economy on the economy in Cyprus?
Very good question, because to be fair, across the world, across especially Europe, the finance industry has key roles to play in facilitating a shift to a circular economy, but always is the issue of the financing and how a project can be bankable, can be an investment, and how can be related to business risks. So the banks and other lenders and investors can also raise awareness. So mainly the awareness, starting with the awareness will help to be able to get people to understand what circularity is, to implement it, so to request it. So they will request projects, and therefore also the banks, which are banks, lenders, that are the big finance players for financing such projects, will be on board. Also, in parallel to the finance, it's important, as George noted, the stakeholders to be involved, the governments will be involved, as to give the motivation and the motives to be able to support persons that want to invest in such projects, because circular economy, it's a long term, and also will create employment positions, as Andrew said, will also diversify the products, will give more opportunities. So personally, I believe that for the finance is a widespread awareness to the need of the transition. And for that, because the market will follow, and also they're doing it. It's not that they're not doing it. The banks are looking at it, and financial services are looking at it. It's just they need more awareness of the people to be more aware that circular economy and circularity, it's a tool that it can provide. And in Cyprus, we have some tools that they started implementing, and I will agree with Mr. Kremlin, with Dr. Kremlin, that we may not be Greece, but we have plans in Cyprus, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Tourism and Commerce. They have they came outside and they proposed and they noted and voted for some not donations, programs to be able to support this transition to circular economy. So yeah, there is a future, hopefully. But first, you have to get up the awareness to people.
Exactly. That being said, you know, Dr. Yorgos, the topic of our forum is all about inclusivity. So what is, in your opinion, an inclusive approach to circular economy?
Well, first of all, I think we have to understand one thing. We are people from different disciplines and practices here, and we are talking about exactly the same thing from a different perspective. That's exactly the inclusivity that we're looking in circular economy. And why circular economy requires an inclusive approach? Because it touches so many of the domains, from employment, from finances, from standards, from processes. George Gremlis has mentioned an array of domains. As you can see in the slide there, an inclusive approach starts from the family. It goes up to the education and the culture of everybody. The inclusivity means, in this way, is not that nobody's included from a human perspective, but nothing is included from the practice. Because circular economy, whether we want to accept it or not, scientifically, it is not an exact science. So it's a business model, it's a way we're behaving, a way we're working, and let's address a little bit the elephant in the room, which is the issue that we are occurring now with the Ukrainian-Russia war. It expedites and makes a more intense and vivid requirement for a solution to be addressed in the energy sector. And it's not just anymore the discussion about the climate change, the overconsumption, the scarcity of resources. There are much more. So either we are inclusive in the sense from cultural aspects, from educational aspects, from business aspects, and everything in the chain of command that we just discussed. Otherwise, we will not be having a result in the society in its entirety. So inclusivity means not that anyone is excluded, but nothing is excluded. So we have to be very careful when we talk about inclusivity in the domain of circular economy. Apologies. So that's I think that's the main reason that we have to be talking about inclusivity in the domain of circular economy.
So you mentioned education. How do you think upskilling and reskilling is needed in this case?
Well, upskilling and reskilling is crucial for circular economy just for the mere reason I just mentioned, meaning if you want to become a physician, you go and you study accordingly. If you want to become a mathematician, you go and you study mathematics. If you want to become a circular economy expert, you have to go and improve your skills, not your structural education. And that's a very important element to understand, because skills in the context of circular economy could be applied different in different domains of the productive economy. The principles may be the same, but the practice and the implementation and the culture of each industry is different. So upskilling and reskilling in this context, I think it's, allow me to say, it's primary. It's a primary target rather than structural education in addressing that.
Thank you so much. Athena, what do you think, what's in your opinion, the effort that's being put at CYS, Cyprus standards body, in kind of pushing forward organizations in their transition?
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, standards are the tools with which an organization of any type and any kind can achieve conformity, maybe, as we would like to call it. Now, I mentioned before that on an international level, we all the standards bodies, we work together to create international standards. But primarily what we do, we have to listen to what our local stakeholders want. We have to listen and to discover what the gaps in standards, in specifications are, and to be able to fill that gap. So at this point, we work with our local stakeholders, and when we actually see that there's a gap in international standardization, but there is a need in our own country, we go about creating the specification, the standard that is needed. At this point, we have a lot of different activities going on. For example, we are now developing a new standard in the area of circular plastics. And I know most of you probably recycle your plastics and you think that's enough, but circular economy is not recycling. Circular economy is about reuse, it's about production, recycling, reuse, and everything. Andonis mentioned the clothes made out of waste. So recycling is something very close to us. But circular plastics, there's no specification, no standard anywhere internationally. And that means that we in Cyprus have actually pinpointed this need, and we're working with all our stakeholders, private, government, bodies, associations, to create a standard. This standard might be the starting point for an international standard. And we also have a national strategy on circular economy. This national strategy, which is funded by the government and by European funds as well, we as CYS are one of the main stakeholders. We are there to be able to get direction from the government bodies, from the industry, and to develop standards. For example, there's a big gap in how you reuse, not recycle, how you reuse construction materials. There's a huge waste, but there's nowhere a specification saying how to use it and where to use it. And on a national level, we are helping the industry to develop a standard. So this standard might also become part of national legislation. So these are a few examples of how we work, and we feel like there's more work to be done by us as well.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. George, we've heard a lot about new skills, new jobs, and the workforce is actually facing sort of fear on the status of employment moving forward. Do you think Greece and Cyprus are actually promoting circular jobs in an efficient manner?
Let me start by saying that the challenge of Cyprus as an island, with the handicap of the insularity in implementing circular economy, is huge, as it is far from the single European market. It has to recycle its own let's say, products. There is no recycling capacity in Cyprus. Unfortunately, in Greece, there is limited recycling capacity, so I do believe that we need the synergies, at least between Greece and Cyprus, as we are the closest, let's say, countries within the European Union, with the view to supporting Cyprus in this transition. Clearly, this transition will create a lot of jobs, and it will also generate eco-innovation. Eco-innovation is one of the other elements that is needed. So new businesses, startups will be developed. You have to provide incentives. Without incentives, nothing happens. And of course, there are a lot of EU funds. The European Union provides 30% of its budget to support energy transition and climate initiative. And in that respect, circular economy is in the center of this transition. Therefore, green jobs are there, but of course they have to be supported through incentives. And what I wanted to add is, listening also to the previous speaker, we need to develop the social circular economy. Circular economy as the pure economic model without the social dimension is a no-go. We need the participation of the public, from the schools, from the households. We need a new circular economy culture, which has to be developed, combined with reskilling, upskilling, with capacity building, institutional building. There are a lot of things that need to be done to support this transition, not in terms of legal framework, but also in terms of incentives. Next Generation EU has 700 billion. Up to now, we have spent only 100 billion. There is room for developing more and more projects, and I believe that both countries, both our countries, Greece and Cyprus, have this potential and the expertise, the know-how which is there to promote this kind of activities, which will create jobs. And in Germany, and I finish with this, millions of jobs have been created under the umbrella of circular economy. We can see also that already in Greece, but again, for Cyprus, the challenge is big. This is why you need a holistic circular economy strategy to see how you will face the handicap of the insularity. And the last point I wanted to make, When the conference on the future of Europe or the new convention on the future of Europe will start, insularity needs to be in the center of the discussions, both for Cyprus as an island state, but also for Greece. We have Malta too, we have Ireland. It is extremely important in this transition towards climate neutrality to have the insularity dimension highlighted and supported to help our countries ensure this transition towards climate neutrality.
Thank you so much. Andrei, what can you tell us, like how is OEV taking action in supporting businesses in Cyprus through their transition?
Well, as an employers federation, we acknowledge that green transition, among other benefits, it will also provide a general economic boost and will enhance the competitiveness and the resilience of the businesses. Therefore, we have placed circular economy high on our agenda. Apart from incorporating circular economy within our core business activities and services that we provide to our members, such as keeping them up with relevant developments, creating the relevant awareness, we also take several initiatives towards that direction. We have established the Cyprus Circular Economy Network, and we are the implementing body of the measure promotion of circular economy to hotels and tourist accommodation that is fully funded by the Cyprus Recovery and Resilience Program for 2021-2026. Through this initiative, basically we're going to support 50 businesses to develop their roadmap in becoming circular through business coaching and other consulting services. 20 businesses out of 50 will have the great opportunity of becoming certified with the pioneering circular economy certification scheme that is currently developed with the collaboration with CYS. And we will be supporting during the implementation stage. We believe that for us it's just the beginning as a federation, and our aspiration and our goal, if you like, is to find the proper mechanisms to further support even more businesses, not only in the hospitality sector, but also in other sectors of the economy through their journey towards circularity.
Thank you so much. I left my last favorite question to Antonis. Do you think that we will see and find circular economy in the curriculum of universities and schools in Cyprus?
Well, okay, I'm not going to laugh. Well, what we're looking on circular economy, actually, we're looking for interdisciplinary approach and synergies, to be honest, between academia, industrial level, states, policymakers, political parties, and so on. Yorgos put it very, very well. Actually, what we are trying to develop is to develop, if you allowed me to steal a terminology of you that you use, the circular citizen. It's something that it's in the core of circular economy. And when we're speaking about circular economy, actually, we are speaking with a huge R. This is the main core, is not dealing with recycling. You have in front of you somebody that is against recycling. We have discovered with my team 33 different R behind recycling, starting with react, how we react with debates, how we refuse on something. So what we're trying to do is to interconnect all those with citizen approach. Then we try to interconnect what Athena mentioned previously, standardization, research, innovation potential, synergies with industrial sector, to convince all of them to participate on circularity and circular economy, and actually to accept to change their business model that, from my point of view, is completely wrong, because it's completely linear, even though we are not thinking circular. So, yes, we're trying to change this.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to know that as well. Well, thank you so much, everyone. It's an honor to have you all here. I would like to give the floor to Dr. Dimitriou to conclude our session about circular economy.
Thank you very much, Joyce. For those that know me, I'm very well known for breaking the protocols in this kind of events. So if you are okay with me, I would like to ask our guests to go next to the screen, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
And the reason is very simple. So here today, tonight, I mean, we are a number of people from different industries, governments, academia, and we're talking to you about something which is called circular economy. So what I learned is that when we talk to an audience like you, we really need to give you something to take home, because otherwise it's a useless exercise. So I'm very happy because my colleagues tonight confirmed one conclusion that I have for the past 10 years where I'm dedicating my life in this research, and that the circular economy is connected with everything. And this takeaway, it's something that I think on behalf of all the panelists, is something that we would like to give you to take home and not feel bad about not being a circular economy expert, not feeling bad about that someone is pretending to be a circular economy expert. Because guess what? There are no circular economy experts. We are all of us in the learning curve, all of us in the learning curve. And that's one of the key takeaways that I would like to pass on to you today. The second one, since we focused a lot the discussion on the Cyprus reality, I want to base myself on two bright examples. One is coming from the standardization, which I think this is a key element that can give a universal truth to an international community who is struggling to find a balance, and CYS is vividly present into these discussions, and as well OEV, who are taking a very solid action in a very crucial domain of our economy, the hotel industry. And the aspiration there is to be able to help our hotels to become more circular. And this is a journey that is starting. So, and this discussion we did tonight was basically to illustrate exactly that important element. And Nicole mentioned the financing aspects. I know everybody's interested about the check. I know it's interested about the payment, about the funding. But it will do nothing unless we change the mindset. And if we give the floor to Nicole for another 2 hours, she will explain you all the discussions that are taking around the tables about finance, about people understanding it. George, which I'm very respectful for your presence in Cyprus, has been exposed in the EU for many years, but as well as at the governmental level. He knows the pain, and he knows the perspective gain. The policy has to work hand in hand with everything that we have just discussed. And this cannot happen if everyone in this room and whoever is watching can understand that we're talking about a transition path. My fellow Adonis, who has been tortured for some years like me in circular economy, trying to understand where do we start and where do we end, and I'm sure that he still haven't figured out, because I haven't figured out either.
I have.
The problem is that when you're talking about education, people are spoiled.
This is true.
Because they want ready-made conclusions to take home. Sorry to disappoint them. That's not going to be one of these cases. You have to put your knowledge, your culture, your experience into practice. And what we tried to do tonight with this panel is to show you exactly that. Circular economy is connected with everything. Circular economy is not connected with the waste, to recycling, to climate change, to the ice meltings. Because, you know something, it happens because many other things have happened before. Our behavior, the way we are working, the way we are consuming, the way we are doing everything. So what is important here for us to give us a message to all of you is that circular economy has a starting point for every single one of us, individually, collectively, and corporately. And last but not least, allow me my biased Cypriot origin, Cyprus is not lagging behind. In fact, I was surprised and amazed by the actions that are being taken. I was surprised and amazed to talk to Athina, to talk to Andri, or torture Andri, one of the two, about doing the first steps and getting out there. I was very positively surprised by interaction I had with academic colleague like Antonis, as well as George, in all this journey that we have been discussing at a very global scale. And you have people like Marcus Esposito, which has been working at a global scale, and we're happy to have you with us, that he's passing us the same messages. So what I would like to ask you to start thinking, because the impact of circular economy to be connected with everything is that we'll have an impact on everything. In every single domain, in different way. But two things will happen. The domains will transform, and the way we do things will transform. And this will have an impact. It will have an impact on our daily lives and our professional lives, whether we want it or not. And this is a one-way street that has just started. It's a long way ahead, but it has started. So be mindful, be open, and don't let anybody intimidate you whenever you decide to take the journey. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanford.
You with that?
That's nice.
Thank you very much.